in consultation with the Director General of Agriculture, has carefully evaluated the contribution of many scientists, academics, and policymakers who were directly involved in the agricultural sector in Sri Lanka during their career as eminent agriculturists of the an eminent panel of judges that comprised of Mr. Ajit Vikramasekara, Head Marketing, BASF, Lead Regulatory Affairs and Commercial Crop Protection, BAS Lanka Private Limited, Dr. Shalomi Krishnaraja, Director General, Department of National Botanical Gardens, Peradeniya. Also, Dr. Mojit has been identified, and this award for the best scientist is presented to the best researcher for his or her uninterrupted scientific endeavor, contribution to agriculture, of course, while promoting his or her career. Well, the best agriculturist, on the other hand, takes technology to farmers and to other stakeholders and does an unmatched service. Director General of Agriculture on stage. Everybody put your hands together, give them a round of applause. I would like to invite Mr. K.E. Karunathelaka, Vice President of Sri Lakkora, and also the former Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture, to hand over the plaque to the Director General of Agriculture and the cash award to Ms. John. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, the gold medal for the best scientist by Innovative Anaki Hetiare, Chairperson, Asda 2019. Everybody put your hands together, give them a round of applause. The most promising agriculturist, Ms. J.P. Suyangani Hemalaka. Everybody, another round of applause. We now will move on to the award for the Promising Scientist of the Year 2020, freedom fighter and genuine politician in Galle District. And of course, in 1964, this young boy entered the Faculty of Agriculture, University of Peradeniya, and graduated in 1968 with an honors degree in agriculture. Upon joining the Sri Lanka Agriculture in 1960 division of the department until his retirement in the year 2000. We gratefully acknowledge your exemplary service rendered to the agriculture. I think he deserves another big round of applause. Congratulations. You may be seated. Thank you very much. We now move on to the award for the Best Agriculturalist of the Year 2019. She has been conferred with several awards for scientific excellence, including the National Award for Science and Technology by the National Science Foundation in 2018 and the President's Research Award in the year 2000. She has also served in a number of national research grants and research paper evaluating committees from time to time. And meanwhile, there are more than 25 research publications primarily on the emission, behavior, and fate of ammonia in the atmosphere. His work spans a wide range of disciplines from micrometeorology and atmospheric chemistry to plant ecology and policy analysis. The largest aspect of the work that he has been concerned is the measurement of ammonia biosphere
environment economy. That's our challenge. And as I go, I want to surprise you a little bit with things you would never have expected that I would tell you about. My purpose of doing so is to encourage you as you think about your own work to say, Navasara, someone will have to tell me what it's called in Sri Lankan. Immortal fire was an early name for nitrogen compound. So nitrogen is like this amazing substance. And if we look at the statistics from this, you find out how amazingly pricey nitrogen was in the old days. These prices per... So here we are, nitrogen is this crossing society in multiple dimensions. If you compare it with carbon, everybody talks carbon footprints. Carbon this, carbon that. Somehow, society is not yet talking about nitrogen. Now let's get a bit closer to agriculture. Genetically modified this plant for higher nitrogen use efficiency. And they had a bit of improvement. But what I really saw was that they ran it for several different low, middle and high trials. And the big difference was shown in the paper was that the high fertility NOx pollution is the nitrogen is coming from the atmosphere and adding more nitrogen into the world. Now, potentially that's a benefit. But the problem is that that compound also creates air pollution, threatening human health. It also leads to tropospheric formation, ozone in the air we breathe, and that leads to the crops growing less because it's toxic. So actually we started with 21 reasons to care about nitrogen, reduced it down to 9, and eventually reduced it to 5. And these were the 5 major reasons to care about nitrogen pollution, at least. Food supply is in addition to these. And then we give it an acronym just to help us remember. The wages of too much nitrogen. The water quality challenge, air quality, greenhouse gas, ecosystem, soils challenges are all linked to nitrogen. Of course, these are the world's key environmental threats. We also like playing games, and United Nations Environment Programme has rather liked this diagram on the right, which if you look carefully you will see the 5 classical elements of, here we are, where we go. Let's have water, fire, air, earth, and we put that one of life in the quintessence in the middle. The point is, these games get us thinking, get us a narrative going, get a discussion going, which we can also work with the public. We also need to start saying why we should really care, and key images, as we've seen in those videos, really matter. This is pictures of the environment downwind of a chicken farm in the United Kingdom. On the left is what you should be looking like. This is a model on different zones. And the point is that the air is already polluted before it arrives at the city. The city is arriving, adding this much. This city is my own city, Edinburgh. So industry, transport in the city are the main sources. Then there's a commuting zone, the rest of the country. Transboundary means from outside the UK. But look at the size of the green bars. Individually, the biggest single green bar is the agriculture contribution. So we face a real challenge in urban air quality, how to handle these issues. One of our first attempts to simplify, because I am simplifying to communicate, is to value. Why would you care? And as you know, valuing is a tough thing. You can value the price that someone is ready to pay for a kilo of maize. But how do you value the price of air pollution or water pollution? This is exceptionally difficult. We used what's called a willingness to pay approach. Some people hate that. Personally, I'm happy just to see how we get on and what we learn. Total damage cost of nitrogen pollution estimated at 70 billion euro to 320 billion euros. And all of these numbers are big, and that this is the nitrous oxide part on climate. Perhaps it's small because society is undervaluing the price of climate. You see the significant contribution of agriculture. So here we are. This the growth of the food crop. There's our food supply systems. Humans, the motor of consumption, how much we want to eat. And then, of course, the sewage and the manures. So each of those offers us an opportunity to do better for a cleaner system, less pollution, as does the spatial optimization. But take this line. This is the combustion. This is our input by combustion. We're driving our vehicles, heating. This has now been adopted and embedded within European Union legislation as a result of our work. Not to say that they're mandatory, but there's a very strong encouragement to do them. So if you're spreading manure, don't spread it on the surface, get it in the soil. This is not rocket science. The question is how to do it. And that, of course, includes things like deep fertilizer types. The challenge for us has been not to just measure one compound, but measure all of them. That's research-wise tough work. And I guess you can think about that in your own research. In particular, we focused on a substance called neem oil, which you may be familiar with as a plant protection product. But in India, they have since 2015 said all of the fertilizer must be coated with neem oil. The government they were subsidizing with $7 billion a year, their fertilizer supply. They found out that they had some financial leakage to industrial uses, and they have also got environmental leakage. So they've made it mandatory. All the fertilizer sold, they didn't put the price up a bit, but they reduced the size of the fertilizer bag from 50 kilogram to 45 kilogram to try to encourage the farmer to use a bit less. Has it been successful? And this graph shows that from denitrification, this is a rather interesting graph from some of my earlier work, said what's happening to ammonia flows if you've got a tall grass canopy versus a cut canopy. The ammonia is in day and night coming out, but what happens is it's very soluble, so it's going back onto the canopy again. So whereas there's emission from the soil, is actually deposition from the atmosphere. Sensing, electronic color sensing, timing, whether intercropping with legumes, so you've got a gradual supply, might be another way to ensure a balance, but the key thing is to avoid this excess. Science is, of course, always partial. Somehow Bangladesh was decreased, as it went through from 1961 to 1995, this is going through time. More inputs leaded to lower efficiency, as I said at the beginning. But through some changes, it seems to be increasing its efficiency. Germany, I know, has been doing all sorts of environmental measures. On average, 90% dead. This is not a good message. We cannot tell you yet to what extent that was the wastewater problem or agricultural problem. Our research will be looking into that. Was it the eutrophication and the nutrients, or also biological hazards where there's an illness for these issues if practice should be changed? I want to come to the food issue now, and I mean food choice. And the situation in Sri Lanka will be different, of course, in UK or in Europe. You're eating different diets. So I'm going to give you a picture on European. First off, we found out that the moment we talk about food choice, remember our press officers wouldn't let us talk about it at first. They said, that's too sensitive, you can't talk about this. We had to warm them up slowly. And then when they found out it wasn't too scary in the end, because it's about opportunity. And actually ourselves as nitrogen scientists, if I go to the media to talk about manure management, I don't get... If you looked at page 27, you find that as a small option among many. But the discussion is there, and nitrogen is on the table for discussion. And in the end, 40% impact, doubling the efficiency of the food system, and a few months later, this is their leader article. It's on the table for discussion. I can't tell you what in Sri Lanka you should be eating, but I can tell you, how about this, that if it's the rich that are increasingly eating meat consumption, and everybody aspires to follow the rich, ask yourself what would be the trajectory in 30 years' time? Because if the trajectory in 30 years' time is a massive increase of meat consumption, you will reduce your efficiency and increase pollution. So it's not just in the field, but also society. I'm going to finish with a few policy things. We're working with UN Environment on a policy engagement home. And among this range of things which you can read for yourself, the big question is, how would you have a policy system for nitrogen? The problem is, if it's a national domain, everybody is familiar with the Climate Change Convention. There's a Biodiversity Convention. This is the Vienna Convention on Stratospheric Ozone. The Marine Conventions and Air Convention, they don't talk to each other because they're all too busy, and they need to. So first off, we now have our science support system, and we're now working with UN Environment Coordination Mechanism. I'm very pleased to say that Asia. I think you need lunch at this point, so I'm going to skip the next slide, or very briefly, and say we're having a discussion now, what would it mean to halve nitrogen waste? Sri Lanka is currently championing the development of this, planning to host a meeting under your president, His Excellency Mr. Sirisena, together with the head of UN Environment, to launch a nitrogen campaign of awareness raising, opportunity, and let's see how it gets on. The point is, it's turned around from a conversation about, oh, pollution's really bad, to, hey guys, if we halve...
Very effective presentation. Everybody put your hands together for Professor Sutton. I would like to invite the Secretary, Ministry of Agriculture, Mr. K.D.S. Ranchandra, to please present a token of appreciation to Professor. Everybody, another round of applause. Well, we've almost come to the end of this inauguration of Athene. Finally, I would like to invite Ms. Janaki Hityarachi, Chairperson Asda 2019, to propose the vote of thanks.
In 2019, you will witness the innovations and technical progress of the Department of Agriculture within the past year. During the closing ceremony of Asda 2018, Dr. W.M.W. Veerakon, the Director General of Agriculture, nominated me as the chairperson and the Executive Committee for Asda 2019. Let me first thank you, sir, for trusting me and the Executive Committee, and also for guiding all of us until the very end of the inaugural ceremony. Thank you very much, sir. The success of Asda 2019 is entirely a team effort. I would like to speak on behalf of the Executive Committee from here onwards. We would like to thank Honorable Vasant Alvihare Jali Upeksha from the Asda Secretariat, who completed every task at the on time. Also, I should recall the staff of the Engineering Accounting Division, who manage all financial matters in timely and efficient manner to make this event a success. Even though efforts were made to memorize all the names of those who supported us in numerous ways to make this event a success, several may have been missed out. All of you have supported us in numerous ways to make this Asda 2019 a reality. Please bear with me if I miss out any name due to my negligence. Ladies and gentlemen, I, as the chairperson of Asda 2019, on behalf of the Asda 2019 Executive Committee, invite every one of you to attend technical sessions to be held at the auditorium of PGRC and in Service Training Institute. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a pleasant day.
Thank you very much. And on that wonderful note, we come to the end of the inauguration of Asda 2019. I wish the deliberation. I'd like to thank Dr. Veerakon.
රැඳෙන්නට හැකි නම් ළමා කැල හඬන දෙතොලග සිනාවක් වී පිපෙන්නට හැකි නම් තුරින් තුර නෙලාගත හැකි වනමල වහින්නට හැකි නම් ගිගුම්දී වියලිගම්බිම් වලට ඉහලින් ඉදෙන්නට හැකි නම් බතක් වී බතක් නොයිදෙන පැලක රහසින් නිදන්නට හැකි නම් දෙනෙත් තුල සැබෑවන සුබ සීනයක් වී හැකිනම් දොරින් දොර ලොවම පුබුදන ගීතයක් වී වහින්නට හැකිනම් ගිගුම්දී වියලි ගම්බිම් වලට ඉහලින් ඉදෙන්නට හැකිනම් බතක් වී බතක් නොයිදෙන පැලක රහසින්
Start the first session of Asda 2019. So can you please come inside the auditorium? So it's the time is running fast, and therefore you are kindly invited to come inside. Welcome back to Asda 2019. We are now moving to the session on invited speeches. And to chair this session, we have invited to a special person. Although he is well known to most of you, it is my duty on behalf of the Asda organizing committee to introduce him to you all. In fact, I can make a lengthy description on his contribution towards the agriculture development in Sri Lanka, but I would make it very short upon his request. The chairperson in this session is one of the former Director Generals of the Department of Agriculture, and then he became the chairman of the TRI, CRI, SRI, as well as the Sri Lanka Council for Agriculture Research Policy. And at present, now he has moved from the government sector to share his vast experience with the private sector. Therefore, now at present he is the Director Plantations in the RPCO groups. With this brief introduction, I have pleasure in inviting Dr. Jerry Jayawardena, sir, you to chair this session in Asda 2019.
Thank you, Vasanta. Good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. While congratulating the present Director General and the Asda Chairman for continuing this important symposium for the 20th, 21st from 1999. As you have seen, this is the D-Day for the Department of Agriculture, bringing all the people together, and I am very happy to see that it is growing from strength to strength, and congratulate you all organizers. Let me call this invited speaker session to order, and I am very pleased to invite one of my close friends and colleagues for the first presentation, Professor Kapila Gunasekara. Every one of you knows him. Most of you have passed out from the Peradeniya. He is a Sri Lankan academic professor of agriculture, first Vice Chancellor of University of Vocational Technology, Sri Lanka. And as you all know, before that he was a very popular Vice Chancellor of Peradeniya University for 2 terms. And before that he was the Dean of the Faculty of Agriculture, CEO of Biofood Private Limited, 2013-14, and Director Plantation Development Technical, next to my room at present at RPCO, producing the largest quantity, 12 million kilos of tea, rubber, biggest producer in Sri Lanka, coconut and oil palm oil, biggest producer. I don't need to go further. I'm sure Professor Kapil is there to share his experience, which is under agriculture again, very important sector under agriculture. Without taking much time, Kapil, may I invite you to make a presentation?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Jayawardena. Dr. Veerakoon, Director General of Agriculture, other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. When Dr. Veerakoon wanted me to make an invited presentation, I was wondering what I should be talking about. So I thought maybe some of those crazy ideas which I have tried out in the plantation sector, which is ongoing right now, I thought I will share with you. And let me start by saying that, give you a little bit of a brief background. After I finished my term as the Vice Chancellor of University of Peradeniya, for 2 years I worked at Richard Peary's group on my sabbatical. During that time I made some observations and also did little bit of trials. Based on that, now after I finished everything and completed the university career, I joined Richard Peary's again, and during the last 2 years I have been continuing those ideas and trying out different, trying to solve different problems of the plantation sector. So let me begin. There are 3 items. Right, okay, thank you. So there are 3 areas. One is in the tea sector, because Richard Peary's group, as Dr. Jeriyavadjayadane introduced to you, they have tea estates, oil palm estates and rubber estates. So there are 3 different problems I am trying to present to you, where we have tried different. Now I will not bore you with the details of tea industry and its importance, because you already know it. Now the tea estates in Sri Lanka are currently facing following problems. What are they? Labor shortage, which has increased the cost of production, poor soils with low organic matter content, less than 2%, aging tea bushes which are over 50 years old, and low prices received for made tea at tea auctions. Because as you know, 97% of the tea will have to go through the auctions, and only 3% can be sold locally, but then the producers are also encouraged to direct export, which is not happening very much, except maybe Dilma and few companies. Now if you look at the plucking cost, for plucking is 16 to 18 kilos of tea per day per worker, with an average over kilo payment of rupees 40 per kilogram. So if you harvest more than 18 kilos, they get 40 rupees per kilogram. Then cost per kilogram of harvested leaf at current wage rate ranges from rupees 47.50 to 53.44, and at 23% conversion of green leaf to made tea indicates approximately 47% of the cost of production. And this is one of the reasons why we need to mechanize tea. Then options available for a viable tea industry is mechanized harvesting to overcome the labor shortage, to reduce cost, and change in the traditional planting methods amenable to the mechanized harvesting and improved soil fertility. I just did a little bit of calculation just to show you that if you can increase the norm, twice the norm, 3-4 times the norm I just calculated, because some of the battery operated tea harvesters and engine operated tea harvesters can actually of the work output. If that is the case, these are the figures which you can see how the cost of production keeps reducing, and then the workers' income becomes more. Actually 1100%. If you can get 4 times the norm, and for ease of use, minimal training for the workers. Then simple and cost effective. It's less than 1 kilo in weight. And what you can see here is, this is the battery casing, 3 batteries, 3.7 volts, so it's roughly about 11.1 volts, which can be recharged using a 12 volt charger. So the charging port is here, this is the switch here, and there is a panel indicating the voltage of the battery so that you know the battery level. And inside this is the motor, which is a 12 volt DC motor, brushed, going at about 10,000 RPM. And inside this is the blade. And we have kept a 1 millimeter wall here so that it will not damage the cambium. And it actually works like a router. Very high speed router, so that the shaving can be controlled even to a millimeter if you want. All you have to do is to put this end on top of the panel and keep pushing forward. I will show you. This is the shape of the blade, this one. It's slightly angled so that the cut will be towards the stem, so that there is a channel which will take the latex down to
unique area which is a problem right across agriculture. If I put it into a theme, cost of labor, cost of production, and also when it comes to the organic matter, which is a cardinal problem for agriculture food production today. And I'm sure you all have some clarification, colleagues. He also advised you to think out of the box. Maybe scientists want certain clarification. Please, we can spend about 5 minutes, yeah.
Yes, what you have suggested, I think there is definitely potential, but in addition to that, isn't there potential for the yield to be increased per unit area in addition to those? Because labor charges will, you can meet the demand, and actually labor wages should be increased, right? That problem can be overcome with your suggestions. But at the same time, isn't there potential for that is
right now, I mean, it is not an irrigated crop. So
can you check the mic? Yeah.
actually, it's not an irrigated crop right now. This is why we were trying to try out the drip method so that we can actually promote on one hand the deep rooting by doing intermittent irrigation. And at the same time, we know that if you do irrigate, it can be increased 3 to 4 times again. If you combine fertigation, you can increase the yield further by 6-fold. I mean, these are possibilities which we have not point I state, I put it and personally counted how many most of them had branches with 5, 6, 7, 8 leaves. So I was asking the director of Dr. Sarat, Abesing, if you can make good tea out of this, what are you talking about machines? So it's a question of changing your attitude. The problem with the industry and most of the industries is that when you change technology, the problem is you have to take responsibility of changing that. And most people are scared of that. Then you have to take the responsibility. The
importance of what Dr. Kapila to 400 rupees, where they come down to 300 rupees cost of production is now, both tea, rubber. But we are sure that we have to one day is mechanized. There are no means 60. His next presentation on ADAPT from University of Colombo and Country Director for Environment Sustainability and Director US.
With 4,000 industry zones in the basin, balance this science. Environment Authority data, we can see if you take a bridge. So that's all. Somebody run. With Rajarata University, we ran a little bit of early warning. So that is important for us to start thinking. So this is not heavy duty chemistry. Now for us, you take a bag of urea, you saw spreading in the morning also. And we just go. We just use our brain to calibrate our hand. I have done it myself. I have sprayed pesticides and came with my underwear totally soaked. I mean, that's the days that we didn't know. So how do we do it? Now the new part is, can we do chemical contracting? Now this is a new concept coming. United Nations Industrial Development Program is pushing this. What they say is, you can have community companies or you can have private sector. You undertake the health of the crop, irrespective to the disease. So the farmer only pay premium or government pay the premium on behalf of the farmer. But the company or the entity, either they do all the weedicides, they do all the, can do wonderful things at the end. Now this in Kaduela we did a little bit of experiment. Thanks again.
Dear Dr. Gurupara, Chief with the teeth plastic content.
Basically, I think the way I looked at it is, without waiting a well back, we are in tunnels. That's a big picture. And also our day goes by doing various things that are not that 90%, 10% thing. So we get tied to time wasting meetings, and I'm sure Secretary has ton of things to say about it. It's how you invest your time and energy and the science. And then again, I think we need to do a lot of advocacy to the political authorities or highlighting these. Now, for example, one of the advocacy pieces I did a month ago said that Dudugamanu Kumara Katawa is like, in the north I said Dudawalawe, south we have the fish, the dolphins and the mammals. In the east you have the Yala and the Kumana, and in the west you have the Rumasala and other things. Then you take Hambantota, what's the carrying capacity of the industries, what are the type of industries you can bring to the Hambantota. So these are the kind of things. So if it could be prawns, it could be anything else. So we need to have multiple think tanks working on these issues. I think you can have issue type think tanks in Sri Lanka and sort some of them.
Let's give a hand to Dr. Anand on this wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Jerry, can I give you 30 seconds?
Yeah.
You mentioned Kalpitiya. Now there's another brewing problem. A lot of agencies are giving water pumps to help farmers. So no one has still calculated the total drawdown in an evening. On one hand, the sea level is rising. So I think this is one of the things that's a good research problem for someone to take the carrying capacity of water pumping. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand, for that last comment. Let me, before closing this session, congratulate the two presenters and for their wonderful, useful presentation. If I summarize the messages from Professor Kapila, finally, think out of the box. And from Ananda, when you are doing the research and technology recommendation, think of the environment, sustainability. And also, finally, from a word from me, all you scientists must remember that we are just entering the fourth industrial revolution. It took 100 years for the first revolution, steam engine, railway engine, to our latest technology, digital technology. But this era, there will be a lot of technological development in different fields, from biology to engineering, and there will be fusion of technology, and all scientists must think differently within the next 15 years. The agriculture, and I must say, Dr. Veerakorn, a complete shift in agriculture research agenda to highlight in the abstract depth and breadth of research, while congratulating all the scientists, and we must think seriously about what this country needs within the next 20 years in agriculture technology. Thank you very much. Is there a presentation to the presenters? Yeah.
Yes. So before
organizers.
Dr. Jerry Jayawardena, you are also kindly requested to receive the token of appreciation from the Director General of Agriculture. So finally, while thanking the both presenters as well as the chairperson for their contribution towards the success of this session, I have two announcements from the organizers. Now, of course, all the authors are requested to take their name tags from the reception desk just outside the auditorium. And then the next session will be started at 12:45. Sorry, 2:45. 2:45. The next session will be started, technical session, 2:45. And all are invited for the lunch at the in-service training institute.
The first technical session of the Asda 2019. The session is named as Beyond Farm. First of all, I would like to introduce the chairperson of this session. He is an eminent scientist, professor of University of Peradeniya, renowned career in field of extension, and he has over 25 years of experience in academic research and curriculum development, with over 16 years of practical experience in the field of extension and rural development as a senior extensionist. In his 25 years of academic career, he has developed expertise in agriculture extension, rural development, communication for development, agriculture journalism, media use, and natural resource management. During the university career, he has supervised a number of undergraduate and postgraduate students for their respective degrees. After his retirement from the university career in 2009, he has engaged in managing a number of extension organizations, leading private sector establishments, and served as a consultant to many states. Research career, he has 5 minutes. Other than that, all other presenters, presentation time will be 15 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of discussion. At the 12th minute, after the 12th minute, one bell will be ringed, and after 14 minutes, 2 bells will be ringed, and at end of 15 minutes, 3 bells will be ringed. So all the presenters are required to adhere to these time regulations. And House is requested to keep the silence till the end of the session. Let me hand over the session to the chairman. Thank you very much.
And research, he retired a year ago. So he has been the pillar of agriculture extension education in this country, and he was actually pioneering, and he was also bringing his practical experience to this teaching and research work, and he was a good mentor. So when I also came from the extension field from out there at the Tree Research Institute, he was my mentor. So he has been doing the same thing for so many people, and we are privileged to listen to Professor Yoganathan. And after Professor Yoganathan, we have 4 technical presentations, and we have already really behind time. So we will not take a lot of time in discussions, hopefully, unless you have very serious comments to make.
The Council for Agriculture Research Policy, which is responsible for formulation and implementation of the research policies. Unfortunately for extension, we don't have a similar organization, but in 1992, there was a committee called NAEC, that is the National Agriculture Extension Committee, which was formed and attached to the CARP. And in this committee, there were representatives from various government, private, and NGO organizations. And I represented the university, and of course, Mr. Vairasinghe, who was then the Deputy Director of Extension, was also in the committee. We met a few times and formulated some policy paper and sent it to the ministry, and that was the end of it. Nothing happened beyond that, and it got lost somewhere in the ministry. Then, recently, 2016, there was a meeting here in Gannorua organized by the SLAEA, that is the Sri Lanka Agriculture Extension Association. And also, we came out with some policy issues, but unfortunately, up to now, sad to say, to my knowledge, there's no as far as possible. In order to adopt these new practices, naturally the farmers need the inputs, such as irrigation, agrochemicals, marketing, etc. And all these inputs are provided not by extension, but extension has a direct or indirect role to play in this, because extension agencies are the ones who know the requirements of the farmers, and it's our responsibility in extension to facilitate the supply of all these agencies. And in our country, there are 3 types of organizations engaged in extension: government, mechanism, because all these things have to be monitored. In our country, we do have in the district level the DAC and the DCC. There's a district agricultural committee and the district coordinating committee chaired by the government agent or the district secretary. And it is in these meetings we try to develop some relationships and try to organize these things together. Now is another important issue in the field. And the coordination between the central extension, that is the central extension unit or department is responsible for the extension in the inter-provincial areas, and the provincial extension service there for the provinces. And I have quoted some figures which may not be quite accurate, but what I'm trying to stress there is that in the interprovincial areas, the extension density is somewhat better. An agriculture instructor has to cater to about 750 to 1,000 or 1,500 farm families, whereas in the provinces, the agriculture instructor has to cater to a larger number of farmers, which is a real problem. Another area that is to be concerned is research extension linkage. Now, why do we do research in agriculture is to make sure that develop some technologies that are adaptable by the farmers. So, in order to understand the real field situation, we in research should have a clear understanding of what the farmers' problems are. And search so that relevant research. The salary of a research officer was 650 rupees per month, and that of an extension officer was 360 rupees per month, which was 3 increments less than the research officer, because that time the annual increment was only 30 rupees. Similarly, for research, people were recruited with only honors degree, class degree, and for extension, they were recruited without class. And thirdly, other difference was with respect to postgraduate training. Most of the postgraduate training was for research and not for extension. All these differences were there. But fortunately, with the introduction of the service, the research officers, extension officers, lecturers to schools of agriculture, agricultural economists, subject matter specialists, all of them are put to the same level. That really helped, because now all the officers are recruited at the same level in the agricultural service. We had these provincial directors, deputy directors, assistant directors, etc. And I understand there are hundreds of cadre vacancies in that now. I think someone might help me later. I think some 400, 500 vacancies are there because they didn't have the competence or qualifications to either do research or extension or production for that matter. So the department was entrusted with the responsibility of training these ARPAs in a short time, and that they could do partly to some extent. Other issue is this: to what extent are the extension officers accountable? Unfortunately, it's rather difficult to evaluate the performance of extension, but that's not an excuse, because it takes a longer time for the farmers to adapt. And if we want to introduce a performance-based reward system, I think which was tried for some time in a pilot project level, it was rather difficult because the performance could not be evaluated easily in agriculture extension. And that was a big issue as far as agriculture extension is concerned. How about the facilities? Yes, with the introduction of the cyber extension, many of these cyber units were established in the agrarian service centers, and we do now have a lot of ICTs, information communication technology, and all these things have to be. Another problem is sustainability. There are two things. One is the organizational sustainability, and the other one is the financial sustainability. Just to bring in an example of organizational sustainability, IAES, which means Integrated Agricultural Extension Service, which was implemented in our country from 1993 to 98, where the 4 major government cultivation board, all these 4 agencies for about 5 years, and it was like a temporary marriage, and then they divorced. They got back to the easing. Similarly, the training and visit system, which was introduced with World Bank. Generally, our extension is mostly supply driven, and we should try to make it more demand driven, meaning that the farmer should be able to demand what they want so that it will be very relevant to their service. The last 2 issues, I would just touch upon it very briefly. Training in extension. In our country, when we were students, again, going back to 1967, there was no extension word in the agriculture curriculum in the degree level. And agriculture extension was introduced as half a subject only in 1975. And then we introduced more subjects, and after 20 years, by 1995, we were in a position to create even a new Department of Agriculture Extension in the Faculty of Agriculture. Similarly, at the diploma level and in the practical farm school levels, the extension syllabus was very much improved. Research in extension, unfortunately, is not good still. The type of research done is very little, and that's also done by mostly the academic staff and then some undergraduate and postgraduate students and some development projects. But if you want to adopt some new technologies in the technology transfer and to encourage farmers to adopt them better, we have to do much more research in agriculture extension. Maybe it's time for us to at least have a research arm in the extension division so that the research in extension would be strengthened more. Finally, I would like to just bring a quotation from an interview I had with the AESA, that is Agriculture Extension in South Asia, in February 2014, just at the time of my retirement from the university service, and that is this: without a comprehensive policy, agricultural extension is unlikely to get the priority and attention it deserves. Formulation and implementation of an extension policy should be the first priority for improving extension delivery in Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for patient listening, and I also like to thank the organizers of Asda, especially the Director General, for inviting me to make this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yoganathan.
There may be some questions. Yeah.
I think you have highlighted some very important issues because the problems and policies are full of is visible everywhere in the field of agricultural extension. So I am not sure with the time availability whether we could go for a long discussion, but I am sure many of you will have a lot of ideas to share, but probably this may not necessarily be the forum for that. And please, if you have any ideas, sharing it among ourselves and eventually to go for his vision. I think he was always talking about the carp to become carep and like that. So many that is a real needs for going for a extension policies. Yet I think he highlighted the issues and also I think we have to take this fairly serious, I believe, because as it is the research and extension organizations like the Department of Agriculture conventionally have been giving priority to in-farm issues. Now we are talking about beyond farm. So is one great real need is agricultural extension. So it's not that we don't have any options. The options are there. But I think in the field of scientific disciplines, agricultural research, it's easy sometimes to continue to be working and developing into your own specialty. But when it comes to agricultural extension, the way it has been organized through in the departments and also in other extension organizations, there is no serious research into the policies or any other applications. So we borrow from various other sciences and try to apply various things, and unfortunately because of the lack of a real research base, a lot of other people tell us what to do in the name of agriculture extension. So this is where the extension has been brought down to the services and the...
I would like to invite Dr. R.M. Herath, Director Socio-Economics and Planning.
Okay, let's get on with the rest of the presentations. The next presentation, technical presentation, is on consumer willingness to pay for commodities certified under Sri Lanka Good Agricultural Practices, SL GAP, presented by Mr. A.S.M. Roshan, and it's written by a paper by M. and also with M. Burton. Mr. Roshan, please.
A very good afternoon to all of you. So my name is Roshan, and I'm presenting my paper, which is the title is on consumer willingness to pay for commodities certified under Sri Lanka Good Agriculture Practices. Moving on to the outline of my presentation, I'll be talking to you about some background and objectives, methodology, results and discussion, and finally the conclusion. So starting with some background for my research, as we all know, food is an essential component in our lives, and it is ranked at third out of top 10 mankind problems, which we are facing in 50 years from this time. So I think not only the volume of food, the quality of food is also important. That's why food safety is a widely discussed issue in the world over the past few decades. And also we can see increasingly demanding for safe food. And if we think about the situation in different countries, the initial focus is for satisfying the export market. However, with increased literacy levels and the media intervention in media, if we think about the situation in Sri Lanka, on top of that we have alarming concerns on overuse of the food safety through limiting I'm buying it, I'm paying a premium of 42%. So if there is the commodities there in the supermarket, there will be a premium price, not 42, but it will be a less value. That's why it shows a confidence interval. I think my confidence interval was, though it's 42, it's, the confidence interval was fixed 30.
Is there only two? Is there any reason to selecting only two commodities?
Yes, the two commodities I have selected is rice and tomato. Rice because out of our food basket, major proportion is by rice. So we wanted to know whether the consumers were willing to pay for GAP certified rice. And we have selected tomato because people think tomato is highly infested with
Sri Lanka by Mr. Galabada, WMU Palipana and WMSK Veerasinghe. Ms. Galabada will make the presentation.
In this graph, up to 2007, there was a gradual increase in the maize productivity, but after 2007, there is a drastic increase in the maize productivity. However, at present, the local maize demand is estimated approximately at 400,000 metric tons per year, which is barely met with the local production. The demand for maize is basically derived from the demand for chicken. Because of this, as example, labor and fertilizer are inputs that can be used to produce an output. In this case, it is maize. This frontier, this curve is the production possibility frontier. This frontier is the plot of the maximum maize yield that can be produced using the inputs labor and fertilizer. If a farmer is 100% efficient, that farmer is producing on this frontier, like the points A, B and C. However, most of the farmers produce below the frontier like D. There are two distinct types of measuring technical efficiency. Under the assumption input, the ratio between observed output and the maximum output, it is termed as output-oriented technical efficiency, and under the assumption of fixed output, the ratio between observed input and the minimum input is termed as input-oriented technical efficiency. The variance ratio parameter was estimated using the variability of UI and the total variability. Here I have shown the inefficiency model used to find out the potential determinants of technical efficiency. The data was gathered from a field survey conducted in Anuradhapura, Monaragala and Ampara districts, covering 60 respondents from each district using a pre-tested structured questionnaire. Let's move to the results and discussion part of the presentation. The results are reported separately for each district and for the pooled sample. This table summarizes the demographic and household characteristics of the sample. Majority of the farmers in Anuradhapura district Anuradhapura district is between 41 to 60 years, while it is between 31 to 50 years in Monaragala and 31 to 40 and 51 to 60 in the majority is male. However, the prominent household size are shown here.
This is the outline of my presentation as usual. As we all know, growing perishables in controlled environment or rather protected houses is a common feature in global horticulture. In Sri Lanka, it was introduced in 1997 for cultivation of high-value crops, especially vegetables, to meet the growing local and export market demand. Most of protected houses, farmers are using hydroponic technology to grow vegetables. Actually, the hydroponic or rather soilless culture is a method of cultivating crops in any growing media other than soil, or in a pure water culture where all the nutrients are added to the irrigation. There was no cost of production. Non-circular type soil culture is practiced commonly in Sri Lanka, while excess fertilizer pollute the soil and water resource easily. You can see here the excess fertilizer directly go into the soil. So the objective of my research study is to collect all the relevant information and to introduce effective fertigation schedules for the growers in protected culture. And second study was done to confirm all the data from study 1 before giving to the farmers. When it's come to the material and methods, this study was carried out during year 2017 and 18 in 3 different districts of Sri Lanka, mainly Kandy, Nuwara and Matara district, which are more prominent for the greenhouse practices. Collect information related to the farmer general background, marketable yield, practical aspect of fertigation and growing media. In addition to those in and out temperature, humidity, EC and pH level of media, and light random sampling method, around 30 farmer samples in each district. After the first survey, on-farm data collection was done according to the results of the farmer survey. Those selected crops were subjected to the selected fertigation schedule for 2 consecutive seasons at polytunnel in Peradeniya and Gampala. The plants grown in sterilized core medium in standard grow bags. Full-time and part-time farmers were involved in this protected culture. This is also an important information. This is on growing media and grow bags. Farmers in protected culture, they were using different material as growing media with different ratios to increase the yield. But in this survey, it shows that there is no significant difference of yield among the growing media, and since the required fertilizer applied daily through the fertigation. So, the farmer can use any of these wind media which are easily available as the main soluble fertilizer in Sri Lanka. In addition to that, potassium, calcium and magnesium included fertilizer were also used, and liquid fertilizer as a foliar spray and soil release fertilizer including trace element were used without any recommendation. Here I am categorize fertigation schedules into 1 to 9 because the farmers are using different kind of fertigation schedules because they were practicing perform different yielding habit in tomato. When it's come to the bell pepper, at the same way we were analyzed, and number 5 was given the significantly higher yield in Nuwara and Kandy districts. In Matara district, it was they were using number 6 and 9 fertigation schedules, which are more fertilizer to the plant, which add more fertilizer. Farmers agreed overuse of fertilizer affect the environment. And also here the 82% of farmers said that there is no proper extension service received on fertigation by the government as well as private sector. They said they prefer to use Albert solution because it is very easy to use. And also here the only 16% agree that they have good knowledge on correct dosage. Others are not confident of the dosage that they have to apply for crops, even for the stages of the crops. And 100% of farmer fertigation schedule in non-farm get the more details about those yield. Average yield higher than the farmer field.
Any other questions? Can I ask you one or two make comments? Actually, now you have indicated, I think, most of our social research, especially in the socio-economics and extension type of research, we try to measure certain variables like knowledge, for example. Now, in your case, I am not sure, how did you measure the knowledge of the farmers? So, I think if you want to test the knowledge, how do we test the knowledge when you are in the university or in the school?
A question paper.
Yeah, question paper. Now, that may not be the perfect way to test someone's knowledge, but that's the most conventional method. And also now in the, I'm just taking 1 or 2 minutes to share some of my thoughts about research. And then we talk about female farmers. Now we said 90% are, the rest are female. Now, if you really take the reality of farming in the village household, we don't have only male farmer only doing the farming, other farmer, female doing nothing. So some of these varies. If we want to add value, then we. So for us to say that 90%, Ms. Lienage will make the presentation.
Outcomes. Accordingly, the livelihood outcome index was ranged from 8,000 rupees to around 10,000 rupees per month. They work only 15 days at Helebojunhala and they produce 2 or 3 items. If you see the maximum earners, their profit margin is very high. Their number of working days also high. The number of items they produce is not much different from minimum earners. In here, I want to mention something important. This is the maximum profit owner. She is the only woman who directly expressed about her income and profit. But she also mentioned quite less than the actual amount. She told me that her profit margin is around 120,000 per month. But when I calculated according to her selling, so they expressed their gratitude toward the Extension Office and the Department of Agriculture for giving this chance to them. And also they mentioned a few shortcomings at the Helebojunhala premises, something like they have no room for changing dresses. And also in some places the customer lobby is directly open to the sun, which is not. At the end of the 2007 and beginning of the 2018.
2000?
At the end of the December or 2017 and up to around April 2018.
Before
okay,
that.
I will show you the related slide. I didn't show that because of time constraint. This is the way that the result interpretation was done based on the studies by the Cohen and Holiday.
No, not this one. I'm just asking. We'll go. Shall we go a bit down?
Yeah, low livelihood, moderate and high livelihood words.
Yeah. What are the low livelihood and what are the moderate livelihood and what are the high livelihood? How do you say that?
Let me show you. Okay. Here. There are 9 activities, 9 livelihood outcomes.
Okay. Suppose if I ask, what are the low livelihood outcomes?
It was based on the score they were given.
Can't you identify? Okay, these are the low livelihood outcome. These are the high livelihood outcome.
There are many livelihood outcomes I
things?
mentioned here already. You can see. In the methodology, I mentioned these are the livelihood outcome. Among them, how many of these achieved by each individuals? So, if they achieved less than 6 of them, that if I ask the question, they say yes or no. If accordingly they were given a score, then as all the score was summed up. Only the livelihood outcome was categorized into that.
This is only a score, not the livelihood outcome, low level livelihood outcome. Okay, okay, right, okay. Yeah. Then I just want to know that you analyze the Pearson correlation. Yeah.
Number of items they produce.
This shows only the
number of items they produce, not significant.
Huh?
Number of items they produce was not significant.
Have any comments to make, because we gather here to share something very valuable. It's not that somebody gets an opportunity to make a publication, but we come all the way and then you try to improve the lot. We are a group. We need to help our agriculture. And if there is any comments or ideas that you can share that is useful for the house, we'll have a short discussion, if you don't mind, if you can, maybe less than 5 minutes or so. Any comments in general or targeting to the It's an opportunity. Don't talk about the marks that you have been giving.
One point I got from that one, and second one from the greenhouse and cultivation.
To the professor, and second announcement is